When I mentioned وَقَرْنَ فِي بُيُوتِكُنَّ, you did link it to modesty, and I think the rest of the ayah obviously refers to that as well.
Yes.
Let's talk about that, inshallah. We recently did a podcast, myself and Shaykh Abdul Rahman, on the issue of niqab. What's your opinion on that? You believe niqab is wajib?
I do believe that that on the balance of evidence that the niqab is an obligation. Yes.
Gloves as well?
Allah knows best. I believe to the best of my knowledge, that's what I believe to be correct.
So you believe a woman, you can see where this is going. You believe a woman, when she leaves her house, she has to be covered from head to toe. She's just rendered as an anonymous being, almost like an inanimate object just floating around. She's got no personality. People can't see her face. You understand why there's some people, especially
that's an incredibly misogynistic statement.
What isn't that?
That's incredibly misogynistic.
Isn't that the perception?
No, that's not. Okay, go on, carry on.
Isn't that the perception that many people have of Islam?
It might be the perception, but it's a wholly wrong perception.
Okay, why? Why is it wrong?
ذَلِكَ أَدْنَى أَن يُعْرَفْنَ فَلَا يُؤْذَيْنَ. There are two reasons why the hijab was made obligatory upon a woman. First of all, the hijab was not obligatory in the beginning of Islam. This is something that came in the time of Medina, came after a long time in Islam. It was made obligatory for two reasons. ذَلِكَ أَدْنَى أَن يُعْرَفْنَ. So that she can be known, not so she can be, what did you say, an anonymous floating
object.
An anonymous floating object.
As some people say.
So that she can be known. The hijab is the biggest banner that the woman goes underneath and said, this is me, this is who I am. I'm a person who has boundaries. That's what the hijab means, right? Hijab means a boundary, a barrier. Yeah? That this woman, she says, I have boundaries. So you make sure you stay outside of my boundaries, yeah? Make sure I have boundaries. وَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ أَبْوَابِهَا. If you want to go in the house, go in through the front door. Don't climb in through the window. I'm a person who has boundaries. If I'm available to marry, you go speak to my wali. If I'm not, then my husband will see what is underneath this hijab. Everybody else can just keep their boundaries. And you arafna. So she's making a statement now, like a uniform makes a statement. Like when you see somebody in uniform, it's like, okay, this person has authority.
True.
She's making a statement. I have boundaries. I have a hijab. And I have a partition, a barrier that's between me and between you. وَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ أَبْوَابِهَا. You go to the door you go to the house through the door. فَلَا يُؤْذَيْنَ. And it stops her from being harmed. There are many harms here, but ultimately the greatest harm is religious harm. You know, people sometimes talk about the tafsir of the ayah purely, it stops people whistling at her, and it stops people, leering at her. But ultimately, the greatest harm upon her is the harm in her deen.
In what way?
And the harm in disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or the harm in that hurts her modesty or her chastity. That's the biggest harm, the harm in her religion. So it saves her from the harm in the religion, it saves her from the harm in the dunya. And it sets out a sign that this is who I am. I think it's the biggest statement of her personality. I don't believe it oppresses her personality at all. In fact, let's be honest, how many times in the West, and personally I've seen in office environments, and the way men talk about women because of how they look, and we'll hire her because she's eye candy for the office, and be something to look at, and it's devaluing a woman. That's disgusting, the way people talk about women like that. And who you value her for who she is or what she looks like. So you put hijab on her, do you still value her now?
Yeah, very true.
You value her for who she is, or you value her for what she looks like? Well, I believe that hijab is very, very important. And it's important as well because women are not like men. Ultimately, if you take an average of 100 men and you put those 100 men in a line and you have a woman walk past who's not properly clothed, and then you take 100 women and you have a man walk past who's not properly clothed, wallahi, thumma wallah, the reaction will not be the same.
It's true.
Yeah, it's mustahil, impossible for the reaction to be the same. Men and women are different in that regard. But ultimately, a woman has a right to be valued for who she is, and she has a right to set boundaries. And the hijab, wallah, it sets out a boundary. And when I said I do believe the niqab is fard, but ultimately, I also don't disrespect those people who hold a different view. I understand they have evidence for it, and they have scholars of Islam who held that opinion. Ultimately, a woman who goes out wearing her hijab to the best of her ability, she sets that boundary. She's known as a practicing Muslim woman who has limits. You treat me with respect. You treat me for who I am. And it stops men from abusing her, and it stops her from being harmed in her religion or in her dunya. And I actually believe that's actually a positive thing. It should be seen as a very positive thing and an empowering thing. Because I think right now in the world of feminism, quite sadly, is that feminism has actually reduced the choices that women have. Like right now, in modern feminism today, I'm not talking about like first wave feminism, but modern feminism today, a woman wears hijab, she's oppressed, whether she says she is or she isn't. I'm not oppressed. I want to wear the hijab. I want to be known as a person of modesty, and I want to be judged for who I am, not what I look like. No, I'm sorry, you're oppressed.
Yeah, they feel like even though she's saying that, the only reason she's saying that is because she's being brainwashed by men.
And you won't be, you won't be free until you take off all your clothes. That's the reality of what they're saying to her. And that's ultimately, that it goes against even the usul of feminism. It should go against it. Even the fundamentals of feminism should say that a woman has, at least they're supposed to say that a woman has a choice. But ultimately, they remove the choice in the same way that Islam removes the choice. I do believe that Islam removes the choice, by the way, because Islam is not a religion of choices. وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَمْرًا أَنْ يَكُونَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَرَةُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِمْ. It's not for a believing man or a believing woman. If Allah and His Messenger decree a matter, they should have any choice. Islam is not a religion of choices. It's a religion of submission. But subhanAllah, people calling to freedom, and they remove the choices the same way, except they remove it for their intention.
True.
And as for Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah doesn't decree anything for us, men or women, except that it's good for us.